Alrighty, let's get right into it, shall we? Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Wednesday night live stream for Week 4 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, I'll be answering questions. Again, if you guys do happen to ask a question, whether it is super chat or the live chat, be sure to include your scoring format, whether that is half PPR standard, full PPR, half PPR, doesn't matter. As long as there is some sort of format so that I have context as to what is being asked, we'll be good to go. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, earlier today, we did drop the overall wide receiver rankings, top 40, going into week 4. Again, there's still a lot of unknowns, like obviously Devontae Smith. We don't know whether or not he is going to be active. I would venture to say, due to the concussion protocol, very, very, very seldom do we ever get into a situation in which a wide receiver is able to clear concussion protocol 1 week into the overall conversation. Additionally, they have a week 5 bye, so the chances are they're going to shut down all their wide receivers. I know Covey's going to the IR. AJ Brown's going to miss once again. So pretty much it's just going to be the Dallas Goedert show. And I thought about putting Dallas Goedert as the episodes or live streams overall thumbnail, but that's going to be for tomorrow's quarterback and tight end rankings. Dallas Goedert should have himself a very, very good week, to say the very least, because of the absence of all those other options. But either way, outside of that, we're still uncertain as to the quarterback situation for the Dolphins. If Tyler Huntley is in fact going to take over, Waddle would obviously move up in terms of the overall rankings. So would Tyreek Hill, all this kind of jazz. But otherwise, context is there. If you guys are looking for a specific wide receiver in that wide receiver video, there are timestamps in the description. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into answering questions galore, because I know many of you have them, because again, you're either on one or two ends of the spectrum. You're either going in the wrong direction and you're stacking up losses, or you're going in the right direction and you just want to continue to build your team. So with that all in mind, let's go ahead and begin with the first question of the day, coming in from Andrew Pacina. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew says okay, so do I trade in a full PPR DK Metcalf for James Cook? Being able to trade a top 15 wide receiver for a top 15 running back, I think it's straightforward. It's purely going to be a matter of, what does the rest of your wide receiver depth look like? What does your running back depth look like? But I'm assuming that you would be trading for James Cook because you need the running back depth. And in that scenario, I have no issue with that trade at all. I think it's a good, solid trade across the board. And we just have to hope that, of course, James Cook's going to continue to get his receiving utilization, because that, in the absence of the games in which, of course, Josh Allen steals rushing touchdowns, will be super vital to his overall kind of like baseline of production in a full PPR forming, full PPR scoring format. Goodness gracious, my brain just completely melted for a half second there. But it is what it is. It's midway through the week. The rankings have been killing Andrew slowly, but hopefully tomorrow's game will kind of revitalize me. Either way, continuing on, Adam Amar sends in a question. Thank you, Adam. Says, I have Mason, Kyron, Brian Robinson, Eckler. Wide receivers are JJ, Ayuk, Pickens, Mooney. Okay, so we got a pretty solid group. Eckler's going to go to I think he's already been designated out. I know by the coaching staff they said he wasn't going to play. So hopefully, Adam, you can throw him to your IR spot if it's available, and then go ahead and potentially pick up somebody else, maybe like Roshan Johnson, see what happens in this given week. But as for what you have, Mason, Kyron, B-Rob, and then my wide receivers are JJ, Pickens, Ayuk, Mooney. Should I trade or hold Mason? Would you do Kyron for Christian McCaffrey or Mason for Corum and Puka? I would rather trade Mason for Corum and Puka. That's what I would rather do. I'd rather try to cash in on Mason than have to acquire McCaffrey. Even though acquiring McCaffrey, there's nothing wrong with it, I'd just rather cash in on the scenario at this moment, because what if there's a possibility, just throwing it out there. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I just, we'll play a little bit of devil's advocate. We'll throw out a potential situation that could occur. What if Christian McCaffrey returns and doesn't see a full workload, and they still continue to utilize a two-headed monster scenario with Jordan Mason, and Jordan Mason digs into a lot of the rushing utilization of McCaffrey? What if that takes place? Then at that point, technically, you'll have two great backs, or at least like startable backs, but they'll start digging into each other's work, which would kind of scare me. So yeah, I'd rather just cash in this scenario. Adam, thank you again. Appreciate it. Flotation Swag says, big week, fellas. Let's get this dub out of it. Out of baby Flotation. Did you send something to me on Twitter? If you did, I'll check it out. Otherwise, we're good to go. Thank you, Flotation. Ibrahim sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, we have Deontay Johnson, K9, Tank Dell for Amon-Ra St. Brown, or Deontay K9 for Nico. Okay, so as it currently stands, I think it's very much so dependent on the context of the rest of your team. If I'm going to cash in on the idea of Deontay Johnson at the moment, if you had Okay, so if you told me, hey, Andrew, I've got a lot of running back depth and a lot of wide receiver depth, I tell you to just go after Amon-Ra. Like, I wouldn't mind making that move. But if you don't, then the Nico Collins trade is the one that I would make. I think Kenneth Walker didn't even practice today. I think I can confirm this. I know that the beat reporters that I follow on Twitter specifically said that he wasn't out there on the field in the first 10 minutes of practice while the media was present. So that is obviously not a great sign for him. Let me just see the practice report. Did they update it? They have not. Let me see if the Lions perhaps. No, they haven't. Okay. So I don't know if he practiced today. Let's see here. Did Kenneth Walker practice Wednesday? Let's see. First 10 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. So as of right now, no confirmation, which again, yeah, I'd make that move. I have no issue with it at all. Thank you, Ibrahim. Noah sends in a question, says, trade Collins for Jacobs plus DJ Moore. 3 wide receiver league, half PPR. Okay, so if you're in need of a running back and we're trying to cash in on the buy low prospect of Josh Jacobs, again, he will get Jordan Love back. The offense will elevate, and then subsequently in the elevation, he will get himself more red zone opportunities. I'm fine with it, but again, it's because you need a running back that you're making this move. Because obviously going from Collins to Moore is a huge downgrade, but in this circumstance, you're still getting a wide receiver in return, one that again is trending in the right direction, 10 targets each of the last 2 games, and you get Jacobs that again should be able to fill in for your running back. So I don't have an issue with this at all. Yes, you're giving away a top 6, 7 wide receiver rest of season, maybe even top 5, arguably, but you're still getting back pretty decent value in return in this circumstance. So yeah, if you need the running back, let's do it. MTD sends it a question, says, Kyren for Gibbs. Kyren for Gibbs. You know, in the preseason, I would have said, absolutely, I'll take Gibbs. But based on David Montgomery and his presence and his continuous success and the fact that he is just a dominant force in the red zone and on the goal line, I think I'd probably just keep Kyren as is. I don't think you need to move on from it. The fact of the matter is, last season, the Rams started 3-6 to begin the year. Even if the Rams start 3-6 this season, they have a chance to put it all together and make a playoff push. Once they get back the health of, some of their offensive linemen, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, once they start to build momentum, I mean, they obviously presented it last week that they're not going to give up. They're not just going to roll over because of these injuries. For right now, I think I just keep it as is. Thank you, MTD. Michael Barton sends in a question. Thank you, Michael. Michael says, Cam Akers without Mixon or Deontay Foreman without Ford. Who said, wait. I'm confused. What happened to Jerome Ford? Is there something that I didn't see? What's going on with Jerome Ford? Don't scare me now. Hold up. What the heck is this? 1 hour ago? Is he healthy? What the heck happened? Knee likely to miss practice Wednesday. Yo, since when? Why is this happening, man? Why so many effing injuries? Can we get 1 day without an actual injury popping up on the report that's devastating? Okay, so not only do they have Joel Bitonio limited, they lost Wyatt Teller, which is one of their, incredible guards. They still don't have 2 starting tackles. And then they have a matchup against the Raiders, which again is a great matchup in this circumstance. If in fact Jerome Ford is out, theoretically, would I rather play... If Jerome Ford is out, I know that Pierre Strong is probably still going to be dealing with his injury. I'd probably play Deontay Foreman there. That's the way I'd go about it, honestly. There's certainly a little bit more potential for upside when you associate Cam Akers with the offense of the Houston Texans and the matchup. It's they're within, but I think I'd rather just roll with Foreman. I think he'll get a lot of the overall touches in that. I mean, when I say a lot, I think it could be a 20 rushing attempt game for him. Now, obviously, you're not going to have a lot of offensive line help in that scenario, but I think they'll still be able to be decent enough to be fantasy relevant in that circumstance. As for your second question, also, would you play Michael Wilson without McBride or Harrison? Yes, I'd play them both. I don't have an issue with that. There could be an argument made that Greg Dortch could be more valuable than Michael Wilson in the given week, but as of right now, based on where Michael Wilson was last week, I'd continue to push that. Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison, both great plays against Washington and their terrible secondary. Last question, also Muth or Kmet at tight end. Taking on Indianapolis is really enticing, especially considering what we saw, the capabilities of Cole Kmet last week, what Freiermuth could potentially do this week. Between the two of them, I'd probably lean. Okay, if Keenan Allen plays, I'd probably lean towards Muth. Otherwise, we'll go with Komet. Thank you. Old Greg sends in a question. Thank you, Old Greg. He says the following: in a 12-team full PPR league, start 8. Okay, very well. I'm 3-0. Do we trade DK and Neighbors for Breece Hall and Terry McLaurin? No, I'd keep what you have. Moving on to the next question. Rest of the roster is Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Mason, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, Reed, Brooks, Braylon. Okay, so now with the context of what your team looks like, considering all of the ridiculous talent that you have across the board, Josh Allen. Okay, so you theoretically have Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown, and Jaden Reed if you made this trade. Okay, so technically you can afford to make this deal. Do I love it? Not entirely, because I do think DK and Neighbors are really valuable, especially in a full PPR. If you're playing in like a 3 wide receiver league and you can play a flex, like you could start Amon-Ra, AJ Brown, Malik Neighbors, and DK Metcalf every week for the rest of the season. All you would literally need to do is take Jaden Reed or wait for Jonathan Brooks to come back. Now, if you can't play in one of those kind of circumstances where you have 3 wide receivers or 2 wide receivers, 2 flex, then sure, we'd make this move. But I think yes, you need an RB2 because, again, it's absent. But I think you're pretty set with what you have across the board here. Now, again, if you want to make the move, you can. I don't have an issue with it. But I'm looking towards the alternative of potentially just waiting on Brooks to return or making another move effectively with Jaden Reed. Once, of course, Jordan Love comes back, his value increases, and then you could potentially sell him accordingly. Now, if that's not in the cards, then let's make this move and let's bring in Breece Hall. Thank you. Molly G sends in a question. In a 14-team full PPR, I'm currently 0-3. I just traded Tyreek Hill and JSN for CeeDee Lamb. Thoughts? Fantastic. Beautiful. Love it. Again, if in fact we do not see any sort of effective quarterback play for the Miami Dolphins in the next couple weeks here, and when I say the next couple weeks, the eligibility of Tua Tagovailoa to return to the starting lineup would be week 8, theoretically, right? Because he'd have to miss 4 games due to the injured reserve, and they have a bye week upcoming, so week 8 is when he would potentially return to the lineup. If you can't survive in the next 5 weeks without, the next 4 games without a high tier Tyreek, because again, you're playing in a 12-team league, only 6 make the playoffs. If you're not able to string together wins here, it could end up sinking you. I think that's a great move. Again, you're just giving away JSN as trade fodder because, again, there's so much risk with Tyreek. I love the trade. Thank you, Molly. I'm Gucci. Sends in a question. Says, PPR, trading Christian McCaffrey, Xavier Worthy, and Zach Moss for Connor and Waddle? ? I'd rather have the Christian McCaffrey side of that deal. I think Waddle, again, is very much so a risky commodity at the moment. As for Connor, obviously very valuable. Moss right now, again, because of the matchups that they're having, valuable, and he's still getting himself a pretty healthy volume of touches. Obviously, he's not as great as Connor, but when we're thinking about the potential return of a Tua Tagovailoa in week 8, and when Christian McCaffrey is scheduled to return from his injury, and even if he misses an extra couple weeks after, if that's week 8, I'd much rather have that McCaffrey side of this deal. Michael Barton says in a follow-up, says, do you like the Cowboys as a defense? This week, need upside, so Cowboys, Seahawks, Miami, or Titans. Name your top 5 kickers, please, Angel. I don't even have kicker rankings right now. I'm not even going to joke. Okay, so typically, rankings are done tonight, going into tomorrow. And then a lot of tomorrow is like figuring out all the injuries and all that kind of jazz, then establishing it, then posting on Patreon. Anyway, so in this circumstance, obviously top 5 kickers are pretty straightforward across the industry in terms of like you're always playing Brandon Aubrey, you're always going to play Kaimi Fairbairn, and you're always going to play Harrison Butker. But I mean, if you're looking for a specific kicker to pick up off waivers, you just got to let me know what you have available. If that Green Bay kicker, if the Seahawks kicker is available, those are things that I'm intrigued on potentially picking up and playing. Now, as for your defense for this week, not interested in playing Seattle. I'd be willing to play the Titans defense if, in fact, they confirmed that Tim Boyle or Skylar Thompson was going to start at quarterback. If either of those two start at quarterback, I'm firing up the Titans defense. But again, considering you don't know that answer up until by the time we get to Sunday and the Cowboys play on Thursday, I think I just wait and I either play Miami or the Titans. Thank you for the question, Michael. We move on to Mad Max, who says full PPR, flex 1. Jacobs, London, Etienne, or Zach Moss. Okay, so let's think about this. London in a full PPR, Etienne, Zach Moss. I think I'm going to play London there pretty comfortably as well. I think it would probably be like London. Yeah, London's the play. Like ETN could theoretically have himself a great game, but nothing is telling me that Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line or the game script for that game is going to be in their favor to where they can consecutively run the ball and get ETN into the conversation and getting somewhere between like 17 to 20 rushing attempts in the game. So I'm going to be I'm going to be on the safe side. Let's go with London there. Thank you. Aiden0815 sends in a question. Thank you, Aiden. Says, drop one. Swift for... Should I drop Swift for Kareem Hunt? I would... Okay. There is implied risk here. But Swift has been awful. 1.84 yards per carry is not a joke. Watching the game back before Tuesday's running back video, it is apparent that Swift is lost out there. He is just... typically, there's a blocking scheme. And in those blocking schemes, there are lanes that are specifically constructed and opened for a running back to run through. For some reason, Swift denies these lanes. He just plays his own game for some reason. I don't know what it is. I'd rather have Roschon Johnson because, again, I don't know what the deal with Kareem Hunt is going to be. I don't know how much usage he's going to get. But if there's no Roschon Johnson to pair up with Swift, I don't mind picking up Kareem Hunt. But understand, again, you're dropping a potential technical starter who's had himself double-digit touches each of the last 3 weeks for something that is an unknown commodity. There's a lot of inherent risk in that. That's why I kind of started off and broached the conversation with the inherent risk factor because, again, unless you understand the risk, I'm not going to suggest you take it. But if you understand it, then let's try to make a move. Donahue Brown sends in a question, says, hey, Drew, in a PPR, flex Chuba Hubbard, Jaden Reed, or Zach Charbonnet. Not interested in playing Charbonnet this week, primarily because of the matchup against the Detroit Lions and their incredible run-stop defense. So if it's between Jaden Reed and Chuba Hubbard, a full PPR format would lead me in the direction of playing Jaden Reed in this circumstance. Chuba Hubbard is a great play against Cincinnati. Again, they haven't been able to stop the run thus far this season across the board. Opposing running backs have had themselves great days against them. Ramondre in week 1, Pacheco in week 2 prior to the injury, and of course, most recently, Eckler. I almost said Akers. Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr., but I would seriously play Reed as long as we get a Jordan Love in the lineup. Otherwise, it's Chuba. Thank you. Ji Woo sends in a question. Says, 3-keeper dynasty format. Who can I get for Saquon? 2 people. So you're going to trade away Saquon. You're going to bring back value. Really, at this point, okay, so here's the deal. It's a 3-keeper dynasty. So it's basically just a keeper league. If you're going to give someone Saquon, you're basically saying, I don't want to win this year because Saquon's the number 1 running back rest of the season. That is what he is. So if you're going to bring back value that is comparable to Saquon, whether it's half or full PPR, you need players that are, you need actual top tier talent across the board. Someone would need to give you, the kind of stuff that I would want in return. Someone's got to give me, okay, so I'm going to name some crazy stuff. Like someone needs to give me like Gibbs and Nico Collins. Or someone needs to give me Kyron Williams and maybe Marvin Harrison. Like those are the kind of players. Like I want a top 10 running back and I want a top 10 wide receiver rest of the season. That's what I want. I would obviously want the better of the bunch, right? Like I'd rather have a Nico Collins than a Marvin Harrison. I'd rather have a Kyron Williams than a Gibbs as it goes forward. But yeah, you would need top tier talent because otherwise you're giving away quite literally, in my opinion, the most valuable prospect rest of the season. Thank you. Zolbu sends in a question. Says, sit 1 full PPR, Stevenson, Moss, or Singletary. I'm going to sit Stevenson. I'd love for Stevenson to get more utilization within the receiving game, especially in negative game scripts. It has not been a present part of his game thus far this season. It hasn't been implemented. Hopefully it will get in future weeks, but considering the matchup of Moss against Carolina, the volume of touches he continues to see, and in Singletary taking on quite literally the easiest matchup at the running back position against Dallas, I'd lean in those 2 directions. Thank you. All right, YG sends in a question. It says, PPR. Thinking time to sell on Montgomery and Aaron Jones. Should I do Montgomery for ETN or Jacobs? Wow. I would, based on how Montgomery's looked, based on how that team functions as an offense, there are times that the Lions, if you guys watch these games back, I don't know, for those of you maybe who get the Lions game local or potentially you have, the NFL Sunday package, whatever it is, and you watch Lion games, the Lions often, throughout games, if they wanted to, they could literally run the ball every down and win every game. They could. Especially when their center was healthy, they could do that. But there's often times where for some reason the Lions get bored of running the ball. And then they just want to do these stupid passes and make mistakes and allow Jared Goff to give away the game. I don't know why they get into those scenarios. If they wanted to, they legitimately could run the ball every down and win games. They could do it with the Green Bay Packers did a couple weeks ago to the Indianapolis Colts. I shit you not. But in this scenario, it's trying to sell on those two prospects for the opportunity of Jacobs or ETN. Theoretically, Jacobs is the more valuable, in my opinion. ETN is not trending in the right direction because the team is not in positive game scripts. But if you're going to sell either Aaron Jones or Montgomery, I think I'm selling Aaron Jones first before I do Montgomery. Thank you. Dragon Slayer sends in a question. PPR bench Tyreek Hill to flex Chuba Hubbard. If this week Tim Boyle or Skylar Thompson is the quarterback, I'm benching Tyreek Hill and I'm playing Chuba Hubbard. If Tyler Huntley is the quarterback, I would take the risk / opportunity to give one more chance to Tyreek Hill in the circumstance. Thank you. All right, YG sends in a follow-up question. Says, is Panthers duo worth buying? Can give Jacobs and Montgomery for Deontay and Chuba? Wait. Sorry, Jacobs or Montgomery for Deontay and Chuba. No, it's not worth it. Again, Chuba Hubbard is not going to be the starting running back by the time we get to week 6, 7, because Jonathan Brooks will have returned and either siphoned away all of Chuba Hubbard's utilization, or it's a split backfield and he is no longer as valuable as he once was. Therefore, no, it is not worth the overall move, YG. Thank you. Colby sends in a question, says, rank 1 through 4 PPR, week 4. Jacobs, Garrett Wilson, Diggs, Deontay Johnson. Very well. Of the available options here, in a full PPR scoring format, Diggs is number 1, Deontay's number 2. Yeah, Garrett Wilson's 3 and Jacobs is 4. That's the direction I go in. Thank you. Nani sends in a question, says, traded Nico for Tyreek Hill. I'm 0-3 in a 12-team PPR. Thoughts? I think you've made a very, very, very risky business decision. Now, I understand I can justify it and I can empathize with the choice. You're 0-3. You feel like you're in trouble. You want to change things up. But Nico Collins is one of the best things going for your team. So the fact that you're trading for Tyreek Hill implies that you know something that we don't, Nani. Or you don't know anything and we've made a horrible mistake here. Let's hope that Tyreek Hill gets a quarterback and, somebody that at least is going to throw him the ball on a consistent basis. If that does end up being Tim Boyle, so be it. If it does end up being Tyler Huntley, beautiful. But man, that is a risky decision because, again, like I mentioned earlier, Tua's not coming back until at very least week 8 because of he needs to serve 3 more games of IR and he has a bye week upcoming. So week 8 would be the return. If you're 0-3 by the time you get to week 8, you might be 0-7 because of this trade. And at that point, that's all she wrote. So again, we're hoping that it's not the case, but definitely very, very risky, Nani. Jordy Peasy sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR 12 team, should I trade Shaheed for Ford? No, I'm not really interested in purchasing the value of Ford, especially now that he's on the injury report. Like, that scares me. And I know that Nick Chubb is returning sooner rather than later. As for the rest of your value at running back, you have Montgomery, Javonte, Warren, Swift. Yeah, so your running back room is in complete shambles. So if we're looking for a running back that can theoretically serve value in the short term, I guess Ford can provide that for you if he's healthy. But quite frankly, I don't know if I don't think that's a player that I'm going to actively tell you to go after in order to recoup, that running back value that you require in this circumstance. Let me look across the board here. If I'm looking at players that are very similar in terms of value, what can we do theoretically? Yeah, look, a lot of the options I would mention are probably already rostered in your league, so you wouldn't even be able to deal with it. Yeah, I would just look to try to get something else. I don't think I want to trade for Ford right now. Not after this injury pop-up, and of course, the fact that Nick Chubb is returning off IR eventually. So I'd look for something else. If you can try to trade Shaheed and another piece, like maybe you take Shaheed and, I don't know, technically you have Brooks, which again is, Montgomery and Brooks are your guys. So you can wait till Brooks, but if you take Shaheed and Brooks, sell the idea of Brooks, hey, he's coming back in a couple weeks, and just try to go buy on a more valuable running back, it's probably your best interest at this moment. All right, Jordan Corona sends in a question. Thank you, Jordan. Jordan says, I have Mason, Jonathan Taylor, Charbonnet, and Swift. My wide receivers are Chase, Garrett Wilson, Evans, and Watson. Should I trade Neighbors and Okay, so you didn't even mention Neighbors as a part of your team. But anyway, subsequently after, you said, should I trade Neighbors and Stevenson for Wilson and Mason? So, okay, it's not on your team. Got it. So typically when you're saying, should I trade blank for blank, usually you name the players you have first because you're trading for the opposition. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I understand the question. You're trading Garrett Wilson and Mason for Stevenson and Neighbors. Yeah, I'll take Neighbors and Stevenson rest of the season because again, you're cashing on the value of Mason, which again, you're getting a top 24 running back in exchange while also technically making a lateral move or potentially even an upgrade by getting Neighbors in this circumstance. Thank you, Jordan. Make the deal. Zeke Rodriguez. Thank you, Zeke. Says in a full PPR, flex Dowdle, McConkey, Adunze, or Leggett. Out of the group, I feel far more comfortable rolling with Rome Odunze. If I'm not going to roll Rome Odunze, it's probably McConkey second. Yeah, so those would be the top two, but Odunze is number one. Thank you. Ozzy Reyna sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, flex Devontae Smith if he plays. He's not going to play. Concussion protocol. They have a bye week next week. If a player is to sustain back-to-back concussions, their season's over. Or at least we'll go to the IR. I don't think that they're going to make that potential play, but if he does play, we'll go with the hypothetical. Devontae Smith, Jennings, Flowers. If all three play, Devontae Smith would get the start out of the bunch because he's taking on, of course, Tampa Bay secondary. That is going to be an automatic matchup where he finds success. Now, under the assumption he does not, in fact, play, I would lean towards playing Flowers in this circumstance against the Bills. I understand you want to roll back, Jennings into this conversation. I don't have an issue with it. If you want to play Jennings over Flowers, I wouldn't blame you for doing so, but I just wouldn't myself. As for your other wide receivers, you have Chase and Adams currently. Yeah, okay, cool. So as for Raiders or Rams defense, can't trust the Raiders defense. They looked god-awful. They need to, the fact that their head coach is a defensive-minded head coach, we need to start looking in the mirror. There's a lot. I mean, the Raiders defense last season wasn't even bad. They were great last season. They brought in talent. They brought in Christian Wilkins, and they got worse. Can you imagine? Anyway, in this circumstance, if you want to play Jennings, I don't have an issue with it, but I would prefer Flowers. And if I'm playing one of those two defenses, I would say it's the Rams, but I don't feel comfortable doing that either because honestly, I think it's, the Rams secondary is hollow. They don't have any talent there. Nani said, sorry, I meant Tyreek for Nico. Aha, there we go. Look, Nani, you had me rant for 9 minutes about how this was a god-awful trade. Yeah, we'll take it. That's a great trade. Bringing in Nico. Thank you. Alex Songgrass sends in a question. Says, defensive start. Saints, Dolphins, Titans, Chiefs. I think it's just safe to fire up the Chiefs there out of the group. The fact that the Chiefs are even available in your league, I think is very surprising to me. I think, let me just check real quick. If I'm not mistaken, they're the highest roster percentage league or defense, in Yahoo Fantasy. Let me just confirm my suspicions of sorts. Let's go to roster percentage. Yeah, they have a 91% roster percentage on Yahoo, so I'm surprised they're even available. Out of the group, yeah, I don't mind picking up Kansas City and rolling with them. The Saints matchup could go sideways to them if Atlanta shows up. The Titans, overall defense is a great start, but again, you're not going to know as to whether or not we're going to see Huntley, Tim Boyle, Skylar Thompson later on into the week. So I'm comfortable just rolling the Chiefs against the Chargers. I have no issue with that. Chiefs are really good in terms of stopping the run. Again, they just brutalized the offensive line and the running game of the Falcons just this last week. And of course, Herbert's still dealing with his injury. So Chiefs are in a pretty good spot to find themselves success within the overall matchup. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. Rusty Wright sends in a question, says in a half PPR, I don't know if you recall, but I've been looking for a wide receiver while Kupp/Hill aren't producing. Found a trade for Kyler for Reed. Very well, yeah, because you have Jaden Daniels, right? My quarterback will now be Daniels. Perfect, yeah, that's great. I have no issue with that. Again, you're cashing in on the value of having drafted two quarterbacks. You're being able to get a player that, again, is associated with Jordan Love that going forward is going to be really valuable. And even starting this week should be extremely valuable because, again, if you guys haven't checked out the wide receiver video I posted today, I already have Jaden Reed in my top 20 wide receiver rankings. Again, he primarily plays within the slot position. He ran about 84% of his routes thus far this season from the slot position. And the primary slot nickel cornerback of the Minnesota Vikings, Byron Murphy, has been slaughtered in the slot. Of course, most recently this last week by Stephon Diggs, 10 catches for 94. So, in this circumstance, beautiful. Love it, Rusty. Well done. Ben Chesler sends in a question, says, in a 12-team full PPR, I have Mahomes, ETN, Tony Pollard, JJ, Mike Evans, Laporta, Terry McLaurin, Khalil Shakir. Okay, Sutton, Akers, pretty solid team across the board. Obviously, we would love for ETN and Pollard to play better than they have. Same thing with Evans and Laporta. So I'm assuming, yep, you're 0-3. Okay, says I'm 0-3. Am I just stubborn or do I need to trade? Look, across the board, okay, it's not even just name value, it's actual rest of season value. I truly do believe that this is a good team. It is constructed properly. Now, can you make improvements at every position? Absolutely. Every team can make improvements unless you have Josh Allen and, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson in your starting lineup, which again, nobody does unless you're playing in a one-person league, which again, for those of you who play in a one-person league, respect, we love it. In this circumstance, I don't have an issue with this team. Yes, they haven't performed up to par, but Evans is, again, right now there's a reason why he's the thumbnail of today's live stream. I've been mentioning it for the last 3 consecutive days. I mentioned it on today's video. This is the final time you will be able to trade for Mike Evans. I think he's going to have a monster game against Philly because, again, Philly, without any wide receivers, they're going to have to be throwing the ball to Jahan Dotson is their number 1 wide receiver this week. So it's probably going to be a fest in which the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are just pouring it fucking on. So Mike Evans is going to be great. ETN, again, solid. I don't know. He's an RB2 now, but he's a high-end RB2. Tony Pollard, high-end RB2. JJ, top-tier wide receiver. Laporta, again, I'm still going to believe in the value. Mahomes, again, I'm still going to believe in the talent. McLaurin, Shakir, again, Sutton. Those are 3 great wide receivers. Now, if you want to make some moves, that's who you would sell. You would sell the upside of McLaurin this last week, the upside of Sutton, the upside of Khalil Shakir, and you would try to recoup value at running back because, again, I'm not really interested in touching wide receiver when your bench consists of McLaurin, Shakir, Sutton, and your starters are Mike Evans and JJ. So in this circumstance, if you're trying to make a move, you could potentially take Terry McLaurin, Shakir, one of those two, take him with Tony Pollard and try to make an upgrade, maybe go after Josh Jacobs. That would be the primary suggestion. Otherwise, I'd say you don't even need to move. I think this is a legitimately good team. I understand they haven't played well at all, and they've probably pissed you off to a unbelievable degree, but you and I both know there's a lot of talent still here on this team. Jay Steele sends in a question. Thank you, Jay Steele. Jay Steele says the following. Where art thou, Jay Steele? I lost your question. There it is. Says Neighbors and White, as in, okay, so when you say White, I'm going to assume it's Rashad White because nobody wants Zamir White, right? So Neighbors and White for Kyron Williams. I have Bijan and Mason. Okay, so you would theoretically, yes, I'll take Kyron there. That's fine. Thank you. Justin Cohen says, in a 12-team full PPR, my quarterback is Hurts, my running back is Kyron, Singletary, Warren, and Braylon Allen. Okay, so very. Actually, I don't know if you're thin at running back. Jalen Warren is hurt. But otherwise, Kyron, Singletary, and Braylon can get the job done for the next couple weeks here. Obviously, Kyron goes on bye week next week, so keep that in mind. Is it next week or the week after? Either way, one of these upcoming weeks. You have wide receivers Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, JSN, Shakir, tight end is Kincaid. Should I make any moves or hold? I'd love to try to get another valuable piece at running back. But ultimately, in order to get a running back, you're going to have to give a running back. So unless somebody is very much so interested in trading and getting Shakir and Singletary off your team, it's probably going to be a very difficult prospect of broaching a conversation in terms of, selling Singletary when really it's not the sexiest name of all. But maybe somebody's out there that's interested in Shakir. You can sell him off as the number 1 overall target of the Bills. And also, the guy's got a 100% catch rate. Led the NFL in catch rate last season, broke records in that overall regard. So you could maybe sell those two and try to go get an upgrade at running back. But outside of that, you're holding at this position. Because again, you would just hold. Because again, the bye weeks are coming. And once they do, you're going to need to fill in that flex position with some of your wide receivers going forward. Thank you. Bruce Cowdrey sends in a question. Says 2 questions. First, full PPR, Michael Wilson for the Arizona Cardinals. You put Phoenix. Close enough. Arizona, Phoenix, whatever. Or Mooney. Yeah, between the two of them, I like them both. I like the consistency of the volume of opportunity that Mooney has gotten over the course of the last couple weeks. He doesn't have as clear of a touchdown upside potentially going into the given week. But I do like Mooney and his overall receiving count of the last 2 games. I think, what has he had? Like 14, 15 receptions in the last 2 games. Pretty good overall. A lot of fantasy points in a full PPR to be taken advantage of there. Second, full PPR, need 1. Hubbard, Najee Harris, or Moss. Between the 3 of them, I'd like to play Moss in this scenario. Moss against the Carolina Panthers. Again, Zamir White couldn't do it, but I'm sure Moss is going to be able to deliver for us. Thank you. Emily Doyle sends out a question, says, drop Shaheed for Shakir. Also, Keon Coleman worth keeping? No. If I was in your position, Emily, I would drop Keon Coleman for Shakir if you could do so. Now, if these are completely separate leagues as a whole, and the prospect is dropping Rashid Shaheed for Khalil Shakir, yes, I'd pick up Shakir for the remainder of the season, but I'd still like to have Shaheed on roster if you can make do with somebody else getting dropped. Again, I still have Rashid Shaheed in my top 36 wide receiver rankings as of today. There were a lot of opportunities in this most recent game in which he could have scored multiple touchdowns. Obviously, wasn't able to come down with the ball, but going forward, is going to be able to make those touchdown plays. Obviously, it's not going to be a consistent opportunity share, but he's definitely a good enough wide receiver to take advantage of those opportunities when given them. All right, let's see here. Flotation Swag says, check Twitter. Okay, very well. Let's check what you've sent over. Thank you. All right, would you tag me in here? All right, spent more than I should have thinking folks would try to get Yoshibas and Mooney, but I got him. Okay, that's fine. I mean, again, whatever value you spent in terms of fab on them, it doesn't matter because you needed it because Eckler's, concussion protocol. Anyway, Coop should have a big game. With Eckler out, I was thinking, okay, cool. So let's see the lineup here. So across the board, Coop is in the flex along with, Freiermuth is there. You have Yoshibas sitting there. Mooney's in the lineup. Yeah, pretty good to go. Yep. Okay, the only thing I would legitimately consider is the potential of if, in fact, Deontay Johnson and A.J. Brown are out and Covey is out and there's literally no one to throw the ball to, perhaps this may be a game in which you play Aaron Rodgers over Jalen Hurts, but that's something that we can address once we get to tomorrow's quarterback rankings because I need to establish that fully before I make a bold statement of the sort. But otherwise, pretty looking good across the board there in terms of the starting lineup. Wouldn't change anything based on what you have there, Flotation. Thank you. All right, DeJounte sends in a question. Thank you. Says in a full PPR, I'm in a 10-team league. I'm currently 3-0, but injuries are starting up and need running back and flex. Okay, we have Devin Singletary, Rashad White, Neighbors, or Diggs. Got Puka Pacheco and Walker out. Got it. So let's hope that Walker plays. If he does, even if he does play, he's playing the Lions, so it's not going to be a pretty scene. But in terms of starting running back and flex, I think you're in a really, really good spot here. Of the available players that you have, I would play Singletary as your running back. I don't really trust Rashad White. Not only because, their offensive line's a little bit banged up, but his rushing, effectiveness has not been there, and Bucky Irving's starting to dig into his overall work. But yeah, in this circumstance, I'm playing Singletary, I'm playing Neighbors, I'm firing them up against the Dallas Cowboys and hope that they kick their ass. Thank you. All right, let's see here. I see Nathan Gutierrez sent in a super chat. There wasn't anything attached to it, Nathan. Let me see if I can find you in the live chat. If I can, that'd be greatly appreciated. For those of you who are joining us, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Wednesday. Again, I'll be here for, I don't know. Typically, every stream I want to have it from like an hour to an hour and a half. So hopefully, we're not, I think we're probably 30 minutes into the stream at max. So we're good to go so far. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you very much. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor. Click the like button down below. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, Nathan Gutierrez says the following. In a full PPR, I got offered Achane for Montgomery and Tank. Thoughts? I have wide receivers Diggs, Amon-Ra, Moore, Tank, Addison. My running backs are Cook, Montgomery, J.K. Dobbins, Swift. Okay, so running backs are pretty tough in your scenario, but you still have three pretty solid players that are going to be top 24 options rest of season with Cook, Montgomery, and J.K. Dobbins. Now, obviously, some matchups may hold them accountable for different potentials of upside. But in this circumstance, trading away Montgomery and Tank Dell in order to bring in Achane, again, it's very much so dependent on really Tua's presence. If Tua doesn't come back, the offense as a whole it's dusted. It's done. So do I want to trade away a top 12 running back in the caliber of Montgomery for the potential of Achane? I think that's the risk that you have to ask yourself. At this moment, I'm not making the move right now. Let me see who's playing quarterback this week for the Dolphins. And once I figure out who's doing that, then I can continue on with the progress of figuring out whether I want Achane on my roster. As of right now, I'm not buying it because, again, if you don't have a strong record at the moment, let's say, for example, you're 1-2, 0-3 potentially, and again, you're not going to get back Tua potentially until week 8. That means that Achane in the running game may not exist until then because, again, everyone's stacking the box effectively against them because the quarterbacks are not talented enough. Again, you could ruin your season with a trade like this. So I'd rather you just kind of be patient with it and let's figure out what we're doing as the week progresses. But we'll know for sure. If I move up Achane by Sunday morning, I think that's probably a sign in which I'm willing to make a deal like that in terms of my rankings. Thank you. Okay, after Nathan Gutierrez's question, thank you, Nathan, again. I appreciate it. We had flotation swag. We took care of that. We took care of the Jante. We had Kiwi Sports Mage, who says in a half PPR super flex format. Okay, very well. I have Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, and Jordan Love. Okay, so you need to trade one of the three, but obviously, you don't have to, because again, you could just continue to hoard the talent. You have Bowers and Hawkinson. I traded Love and Hawkinson for Devontae Adams. Beautiful. Fantastic. Take it. Wide receivers of Devontae Smith, JSN Reed. Yeah. That's a W. I have no problem with that. Again, as long as you're able to cash in on the value, you continue to maintain your two stud quarterbacks in Daniels and Allen. You still have Bowers, and you're getting a huge wide receiver one for the remainder of the season. I have no issue with it. Well done. Thank you, QB. Itoza says, trade Tyreek Hill Flowers and Pollard for Saquon. That's too much. Jeez Louise. You're giving up everything. The kitchen sink is going in there. Okay, let me see here. Or am I giving up too much? I'm 1 and 2 PPR, the lowest scoring total. I have Marvin Harrison and Collins. Okay, here's the deal. If you're in a start 7 league, right? 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. If you're in 1 tight end, if you're in one of those kind of formats, right? If you give away Tyreek and Flowers, okay, you're still going to have Marvin Harrison, Collins. Great. You're going to give away Pollard. You'll get Saquon in return. But then who sits in your flex in like going forward? Like, do you have somebody else? Like, is this a smaller league? If it's like a 6-team, 8-team league and you've got studs across the board and you can afford to make a move like this, I'd say, fuck it, let's go for it. Let's spice it up, because I'm very much so I'm not risk averse. I'm always willing to jump into risk if I can justify it with the depth that you have on your bench. But it's very much so dependent on that, Itoza. So if you tell me, hey, Andrew, yeah, it's a smaller league, 10, 8 teams, I got studs across the board on my bench. I mean, shit, I think it's too much, yes. But I'd be willing to just fucking, I'd throw caution to the wind and I'd send it. Crazy, but yes, I would. Nathan Ray sends in a question. Nathan, I know that, oh, you know what? My bad, Nathan. I know that, okay, let me see if you DM me back on Twitter. Oh, no, you hadn't. Okay. Because I did message you on I responded on Twitter because I did see that you reached out. But either way, Jacobs, Laporta, Worthy. Okay, so this is what I wanted to know. Okay, so got it. Here we go. So Jacobs, Laporta, Worthy for DJ and Walker, or same package for Evans and Mixon. My team is Breece Hall, Jacobs, Hunt, Brooks, Chase Brown, Terry Pittman, Shakir, and Worthy. Okay. So of the available options you have here, if you were to trade away Jacobs, Laporta, and Worthy, get back DJ Moore and Kenneth Walker, I'm not interested unless I get Charbonnet in return, because Kenneth Walker is scaring me with this injury. So then is the question, Jacobs and Laporta for Evans and Mixon. Looking at your wide receiver depth, yeah, I'm willing to take the Evans and Mixon deal, only if you can go and 100% pick up Akers. That's probably the only thing that I would have as a contingency option in this scenario. Otherwise, probably hold. Thank you. Dragon the Beast says, Mike Evans for Godwin, Dobbins for Josh Jacobs. Yes, Dobbins for Josh Jacobs, I'm immediately 100% in on. Evans for Chris Godwin, I could go either way on the two. Again, they're both playing, specifically, Godwin's playing out of his mind. Evans will eventually begin to play out of his mind. When that does come to fruition, they will relatively be equal valued players. In a full PPR, I probably prefer Godwin more. In a half PPR, I prefer Evans more, mainly because of the volume of receptions compared to the touchdown upside. I don't think that Godwin's going to be able to keep up this touchdown upside. I think Evans probably outscores him in terms of touchdowns the rest of the season. Mike Gutierrez says, in a PPR, who to start for the flex? Reed, Jacobs, Etienne, or Hill? As of right now, in a full PPR, I'd rather play Reed out of everybody. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Binks. We have, the question is, got offered A.J. Brown. Okay, hold up. Got offered A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, and Goddard for Neighbors and Nico Collins. Yeah, give me A.J. Brown, give me Jamar Chase, give me Goddard rest of the season. No questions asked. Those are the three that I would rather have. Mainly because if we're just talking about 2-for-2 wide receiver, Goddard is just a trade fodder. I don't really care about him. If I'm talking about straight up wide receiver talent and upside for the remainder of the season, I'd feel far more comfortable with A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase in my lineup rather than Neighbors and Nico. Not to say that Neighbors and Nico are anywhere outside of the top 10, because they're still in that conversation as we progress. But Yeah, I'll take the studs of A.J. Brown and Chase in this scenario. As for the rest of your context, you have McBride, Devontae Smith, and Puka on the IR. For context, 10-team PPR league, tight end premium. Got it. Again, I will take the A.J. Brown side. Thank you. We had a question that came in from Nathan Ray once again for follow-up. He says, would you do Jacobs Laporta worthy for DJ and Kenneth Walker? Probably not, unless you could somehow go make a move to try to get Charbonnet. Because I think Kenneth Walker and Jacobs could have relatively close value rest of the season. Giving away Laporta without any other tight end depth really is painful, especially if it's for a player like DJ Moore. So I'd be less willing to make that move and more willing to go and get the wide receiver that you require in Evans in that prior trade that you mentioned, Nathan. Thank you. We move on to Carlton Collins, who sends in a question, says, moves, question mark. 8-team full PPR, 2-1 currently. We have Stroud, Bijan, Mixon, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, Laporta. My bench consists of Ferguson, Ford, Shakir, Mooney, Rashad White, Brooks, Kincaid, and Paul. Okay, so you got a really strong team across the board. The only thing that I would theoretically suggest in this kind of scenario is if you wanted to, you could just start doing 2-for-1 trades. Like you could take, technically, Garrett Wilson and Tony Pollard and just go get another better wide receiver. It does hurt your depth a little bit, but again, you still have Ford, Brooks, and Rashad White on your bench for running back talent. And you're not going to, require... Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's what I'm doing. I'm probably going and looking out for 2-for-1 trades. Like I'm sending out a, mass distress signal to the entire league saying, who wants a 2-for-1? I've got Garrett Wilson and Pollard on the block, and see what kind of running back talent that you can theoretically get in return. That could potentially, or not even running back. It doesn't even have to be running back. Get a wide receiver back in return. Something of top tier capacity. Maybe you go to the Nico Collins team and they're in shambles and they've got no depth at running back because they had Pacheco or something. I don't know. That could be something that could theoretically happen and come to fruition. Thank you. JK sends in a question. Says, in a 12-team full PPR league, we have Lamar, Godwin, Brown, Kirk, Reed, Sutton, Ingram, Strange, Henry, White, Bucky, Steele, Spears, Hill. Thoughts? Okay, so as of right now, you have Godwin. Okay, when you say Brown, I'm going to assume it's AJ Brown. Okay, not Saint Brown. Anyway, so Godwin, Brown, Kirk, and Reed, and Sutton. You can survive. Strange until Ingram comes back is fine. You also have Henry and White as your running backs with Bucky as the potential handcuff in that scenario. You have Steele until, of course, Pacheco's return. And then you have a bunch of fodder in terms of Spears and Justice Hill. In terms of the roster as a whole, again, you'll be okay. But the issue primarily is your RB2. White/Bucky is a disaster. You're hoping that going forward, you might be able to sell Kirk or Sutton for more if they can continue to build a little bit more consistency, and you can sell one of them with, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if you can sell Kirk. You might just have to sell these wide receivers as a pair duo for a running back depth kind of play, because that is my biggest concern for this team. Otherwise, yeah, I think the rest is pretty solid across the board, especially in a full PPR. Thank you, JK. J-Bo sends in a question. J-Bo, where art thou? Let's see here. J-Bo, if I can't find your question in live chat, I'll be surprised. Yeah, J-Bo knows what he's doing. Here we go. Says the following. Okay, back to back. Here we go. It says 10-team full PPR. Christian McCaffrey, Mason, Javonte. We have Steele, Brooks, Bucky. Marvin, London, Moore. Reed, Jameson. Trade Christian McCaffrey and Marvin Harrison for Bijan Robinson and Mike Evans. And you're going to keep Mason, huh? Okay, so as it currently stands, I don't think you need to make the move. Because here's the thing. When you trade away McCaffrey, understand that Mason's a ticking time bomb. He is going to disappear. So you're basically like, I mean, you'll get a couple more weeks of value out of it theoretically, but in the long run, it's a matter of, do I want McCaffrey or Bijan in the late round season and Marv versus Mike? Because I think Marv is better than Mike Evans. I had that in the preseason, and I think it's still going to stay consistent in that regard. But as for Bijan versus Christian McCaffrey straight up, when you already have Mason, would I make that move? God, that's a tough one. Do I want to take the risk? I think I'd keep. If it was my team, I'd keep it as such. If you want to get out of the McCaffrey situation, that's fine. I don't have an issue with it. I think Mason is still going to be a great running back, even if McCaffrey misses more time than we anticipate. I'd probably keep it as such. Now, if you're one of the people, Jabo, who believes in the fairy tale that I told earlier, in the reality of which maybe McCaffrey comes back and has a limited role, and you're buying in on that idea, then you would take this trade because that's what you believe. But otherwise, I think you just keep what you have. Thank you, Jabo. Appreciate it. All right, moving on from Jabo's question. Let's see who is next on the list. We have the following. Roy Shaver, thank you, Roy. Says in a half PPR, pick one. 3 wide receiver, Mooney, Ridley, or Kirk. Between the 3 of them, I'd like to play Kirk this week. Thank you. Luis Castillo says in a 10-team standard, have Richardson, Mayfield. Okay, very well. Geno, Fields, and Cousins are on the wire. Picking up one of them, and who do I drop? If I'm going to play one of these quarterbacks this week, I'd feel most comfortable playing Geno or Fields. I would be willing to drop Mayfield or Geno or Fields. As for who I prefer this week in specific, I'm probably leaning in the direction of Geno against that Detroit secondary. Thank you. Aaron Lee sends it a question, says trade James Cook for JT? Abso-fucking-lutely, yes. Thank you. Don Ray Morales says, in a half PPR flex, Khalil Shakir, Rashid Shaheed, or Swift week 4. I'm not playing Swift. Miss me with that shit. I would much rather just roll with probably, if it's a half PPR, you could take the risk of Shaheed. I think Shakir is just the safest play of the bunch. In a half PPR, I'm more inclined to go with the wide receiver that has that touchdown upside. But if Khalil Shakir and the Buffalo Bills just continue to bust every defense they face against, it'd be hard for me to pass up on it. As of earlier today's rankings, I'm actually curious, what the heck did I even do earlier today that you're asking this question? Were they back-to-back ranked? Let me see here. So we had Khalil Shakir sitting at 30 and Shaheed at 32 and a half PPR. Yeah, I'm still going to stick with the Khalil Shakir overall play in that circumstance. Thank you. All right, moving on. We had a question from Z Hands, who says, in a half PPR 12-man league, I have Kyler, Saquon, Kyron, Kenneth Walker, McBride, Komet, D. Johnson. Okay. Terry McLaurin, Corum, Jennings, Dell, Downs, Wilson. Okay. So, what is the question here? Dak / Daddle / Ingram are on waivers. Thoughts on pickup / drops and how aggressive, if at all, for who? Okay. So Dak Prescott and that defense is going to allow him to be a better quarterback because they'll throw for the entirety of second halves for the remainder of the season, especially with their upcoming matchups. Now, as for if I'm going after him for the sake of Kyler, I mean, you could if you want to. If you were going to drop somebody off of your bench, it would have to be, well, honestly, if I have Kyron, I'm going to keep Corum. You would drop Josh Downs in that scenario for Dak. Now, as for you already have McBride and Komet, I'm not going after Ingram. If you can pick him up and put him on your IR, that's great. Otherwise, everything else I'd leave as is. Dak for Downs. If you can move, if once in fact McBride is, let's say, for example, he's out this week and he goes to the out designation, you can put him on IR, then you just pick up Ingram and then put Ingram on IR. Effectively, because you'd have an open roster spot. Thank you. Moving on, we had Bearcat, who says, hey, Andrew, Dolphins defense or Bears defense this week? I'd feel more comfortable rolling with the Dolphins defense. Thank you. Luis Figueroa sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, my running backs are Mixon, Pacheco are out. Okay, very well. To start, Chuba Hubbard, very well, with Braylon Allen or Akers. As of right now, I probably lean towards the idea of playing Akers in this circumstance. Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable with Akers. I mean, I know he has the full backfield reign to himself in comparison to Braylon Allen, who obviously has to hope that Breece Hall doesn't steal the value before he gets a bite at the apple. So in this scenario, it would be Akers in the absence of Mixon. As for your second question, London with Devontae Adams or Jaden Reed. I have Godwin as my flex. Thoughts on Bucky Irving? Okay, Bucky Irving should be fine. Again, we're going to continue to see him get more running utilization going forward. Could even start to dig into the receiving work of Rachaad White. We'll have to wait and see. As for Adams or Jaden Reed, I love them both. They're both in my top 20, but I do prefer Adams in this circumstance. Thank you. KB says, still recommend non-CMC managers to trade Mason. Yes, absolutely. Yep. Again, if you do not have Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason eventually is going to disappear. Eventually. There is going to come a time in which Christian McCaffrey takes over this backfield at a full healthy rate. As for whether that's in 3 weeks or whether that's in 13 weeks, who fucking knows? But as it currently stands, yes, I would always like to cash in on Mason when I am, available to do so. Gio Ortiz says JSN, Rome Odunze, Juwan Jennings over Olave due to better matchup? Would I play any of those three over Olave? No, I would not. If you would like to, you're more than welcome to. But as of right now, I would like to have Olave in my lineup against Atlanta. Thank you. Sven sends in a question, says Hall and McMillan for Saquon. Yeah, I'd rather have Saquon there. I don't know. I mean, McMillan is the Tampa Bay wide receiver, the rookie, right, out of Washington. I'd rather have Saquon there rest of the season. Thank you. Aiden0815 says, there was an article that came out that Roschon will be added, will get added work, plus Swift snap percentage has gone down each week. So I'm not really too concerned about an article. If there's a quote, perhaps, that specifically says from, the head coach or the offensive coordinator that Roschon's going to get more utilization, then I'll buy in on that idea, which would be great. And I'm not, I'm looking to try to get rid of Swift, or I'm trying to prepare for the replacement of Swift by getting Roschon Johnson on roster, because, again, it's bound to happen. I said it yesterday. Swift this year is last year's Miles Sanders. He goes from playing on the Eagles to playing for another team and completely getting terminated in terms of his overall value. Okay, moving on. We had a question that came in from Seta. Seta, thank you. Says, in a 12-man league, traded Godwin for Jacobs, Amari Cooper, and Jamison Williams. I mean, fuck it, Jesus. Hello? How? How did anybody allow this to happen? You got Jacobs, Amari, and Jamison Williams for Godwin. Okay, well, congratulations. I don't know what else to tell you, my man. That's a great trade. Wow. Well done. Well done. That is one of the most shocking trades I've seen in a while. Do I flip Amari Cooper? You can, but you don't need to. You can just use him this week against the Raiders. Amari Cooper revenge game against his former Raiders. I feel like there's something that's going to cook in that circumstance, at least for this week. And then maybe you can flip him again next week. Otherwise, if you can flip him now, why not? You just stole a lot of value from that Godwin play. Josh Etheridge sends in a question, and he says, traded Bijan, DK, Scary Terry for CeeDee Lamb, Gibbs. Thoughts? All right, so I'm cool with it. That's fine. Look, the way that I see it, like Bijan, CeeDee Lamb, relatively similar types of value, especially in a half PPR. In a full PPR, hopefully CeeDee Lamb begins to kind of pull away in that circumstance. But as for the Gibbs for DK Terry kind of compensation, I'm okay with that. I don't have an issue with the trade overall. Again, it's kind of cashing in on the idea of Terry in this circumstance. Thank you. Elseway sends out a question. Says, I'm currently 3-0. How can I improve my team? I'm second to last in scoring. How are you 3-0? Okay. Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Pittman Jr. Okay, Michael Pittman Jr. is your issue. Christian Kirk, JSN, Juwan Jennings. We have Darnell Mooney, James Conner, Montgomery, Hunt, Laporta. Honestly, looking at your team as a whole, right? Josh Allen's great. CeeDee Lamb will continue to be, at least will improve and be great once he does find himself, not having temper tantrums on the sideline. But we all want our number one wide receivers to have temper tantrums, because once they start asking for the ball, just expect on Thursday for CeeDee Lamb to go off. Like, I'm talking about go off. I'm talking about 150 yards and a touchdown. Okay, we're going to put together an underdog pick by the end of the night. He will be involved. Anyway, so those two are great. As for your wide receiver 2, it's a revolving door until we find some consistency out of Pittman, Kirk, or JSN. Whoever takes the lead on that, great. Until then, Juwan Jennings plays as that wide receiver 2. As for the rest of the conversation, Connor, Montgomery, I don't have an issue with either of those two as my remaining running backs, but I would like to have Trey Benson on roster just in case for the value of Connor if in fact he goes down with an injury. Laporta, Kmet as the contingency, no issue there. So again, I think it's a waiting game. You're waiting to see which one of those wide receivers to step up, and once they do, then you can consistently play them, and the rest of your team will play better. Thank you. Cowboys9511 says, drop Josh Downs or Xavier Legette for Roschon Johnson. Yeah, give me Josh Downs. Dump him immediately and give me Roschon Johnson. Thank you. Let's see here. Demise sends in a question. Says, Jordan Mason or DK Metcalf in the flex in a full PPR? Really, really good question. I'd have a very tough time not starting Jordan Mason in the given week. Again, when I can get a running back that is going to get 20 total touches, that is something that very, very rarely do you ever see. And in this circumstance, I'm very seldom to pass up on the idea of having a running back sit on my bench that is going to get 20 touches. So personally, I'd rather roll out Jordan Mason. I understand the full PPR format, but against the New England Patriots, it could be a very much so one-sided affair here. Yeah, I take Jordan Mason there. Jerry Mendoza sends in a question. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry says, in a full PPR, my wide receivers are Ayuk, Shaheed, Cooper, and Alec Pierce. My running backs are Saquon Barkley, Pollard, and Hubbard, along with Ezekiel Elliott. Who should I start? Who do I bench? Cool. So under the assumption that you can start 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers, first and foremost, the wide receivers that you play are Amari Cooper and Brandon Ayuk. The running backs that you play are Barkley and most likely Pollard because of Miami's, unsustained run-stop defense. It literally just doesn't exist. Now, if you can play 1 flex out of the group, it would be Hubbard. If you could play 2 flex, it would be Shaheed alongside of Hubbard. Thank you. Moving on to a question that came in from Caramel, who says, in a 10-team half PPR redraft format, I have 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 3 flex. Okay, so we've got a lot of opportunity here. I need a running back help. I have Henry, Ford, Zamir White, and Warren. Okay, great. So you have Henry. That's it. Everybody else is just kind of fodder. Anyway, continuing on. In a decent wide receiver depth of Amon-Ra, Olave, Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, McLaurin. Yes, you do. Okay, great. But you need the depth because, again, you can start theoretically 5 wide receivers in this league. So I'm not going to suggest you move any of those potential options. Continuing on. Trade Shakir and Mooney for Carson Steele and Pacheco. Okay, so you've got enough wide receiver depth to be able to sustain this. Is the value of getting Carson Steele and Pacheco enough? The issue is if, in fact, we're going to be in a situation where if Kareem Hunt comes in and really digs into the overall workload of Carson Steele, this would be a mistake of a trade. So I'm probably not going to lean in the direction of making a trade of this capacity. I would rather, in your scenario, take Jerome Ford, take a player like McLaurin or Deontay Johnson, and try to go make a better upgrade at a sustainable running back like a Travis Etienne. That's what I would look to try to do because I don't really want to try to go after a running back of Carson Steele if he's not going to hold the running back, backfield to himself if Kareem Hunt's coming in to take work. Again, it's very much so speculatory as to what happens to this backfield. We need this week to understand exactly how it's going to break down. If you can hold off on the trade, go for it. But otherwise, in this circumstance, I'm taking Ford and I'm taking Deontay or McLaurin and I'm trying to cash in as quickly as I can. If I have to take Deontay and Shakir, and I got to go cash in on a running back, I do so as well. Even if I don't have to give away Ford, just to go get a running back. You have so much wide receivers, and I understand you don't want to because you can start 5 of them, but even if you were to trade away 2, you'd still have 5 that you can start every week. Thank you. Pollock sends in a question, says, Purdy or Baker in the full PPR? As of this week, I probably play Baker. Yeah, I feel more comfortable playing Baker. Purdy played great last year, don't get it wrong. 3 passing touchdowns is no effing joke. But I think the running game will be a little bit more efficient and it will kind of unfortunately take away from that upside of his passing touchdowns. Thank you. While on the other side, again, Baker, they don't really have rushing touchdowns coming in there. It's really just going to be the Mike Evans and Godwin game against that secondary. Chief sends in a question, says in a half PPR start 1, we have Ford, Sharps, Dowdle, Allen, and Irving. Okay, so of the available, if Ford is healthy, theoretically, he would be the most valuable against the Las Vegas Raiders. But in this circumstance, with the health in question, I'd probably lean in the direction of playing Braylon Allen there this week. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from, let's see, where art thou? Okay. Hector, Kirchhoff's #1 fan, sends in a question. Thank you, Hector. Hector says the following. Smitty for Reed and Saquon. Wait. Smitty for Reed and Saquon for Terry, Gibbs, and Jones. Okay, so you're trying to sell Devontae Smith for Jaden Reed and then subsequently also trade away Saquon for Terry McLaurin, Gibbs, and Aaron Jones. Okay. Let's think about this. How do we want to do this? Do we want to trade away all of our Eagles? Okay, let's start off with the first question. Smitty or Jaden Reed? Rest of season, I think they'll probably have comparable value to the point to where I'd like to keep Smith because, that's one of my favorite players, but I don't mind going after Reed. No issue with that at all. Now, as for your second question, bringing in Gibbs and Jones, pretty good value on top of Terry. Now, if you're not going to be able to start all of these pieces you bring in it's not worth it. Like if you're like, hey, I can bring in Gibbs, Jones, and Terry. I'm only going to be playing Gibbs and Jones. Terry sits on the bench. I'd then try to go get another better, pair of running backs, which again, I don't think you'll be able to find. But if possible, I try to go down that path. If you're going to start everyone in this circumstance and you need the running back depth because you are an absolute shambles and you have Saquon and then your next best running backs are Swift and Javonte and Zamir White, then I could justify it. But the thing is, you got to understand, you're trading away a running back that is capable of 25 points a week for two running backs who will probably put somewhere between like 13 to 16, 17 maybe. Saquon could theoretically outscore them 2-1 in a given week. It's possible, but again, if you need the running back depth, I'm okay with it. Emily Doyle says, Andrew, missed the Keon answer. Was it a no? Okay, sorry, Emily, my bad. Let me go back up. So, again, I don't even control the ads, guys, by the way. If you get hit with ads, I apologize. It's not on me. It's just YouTube that just auto-runs them. To answer your question, so you had said, drop Shaheed for Shakir. So my suggestion was I would like to get Shakir for sure, but I want to drop Keon Coleman for Shakir if possible. Now, if it's a different league altogether and it's not the overall situation in which they're both are all, on the same team, I think Keon Coleman's worth dropping if you need the depth because, again, upcoming bye weeks and injuries could be something that you need to try to avoid. So, yeah, I'm willing to drop him. Thank you. Colin Parker sends in a question, says, I'm 2-1 currently, and I'm in a 12-team full PPR league. Okay, who should I try to trade Hurts for? Okay, so if you're going to try to trade Jalen Hurts, you can theoretically... Okay, so you can do one of two things. You can either go 1-for-1 with a quarterback. The only other quarterback that I'm off the top of my mind saying that you can go 1-for-1 with him is either you're getting Josh Allen, which no one's going to do, or you're going after Lamar Jackson. So if you can't do either of those two, you would have to take Jalen Hurts and downgrade him for someone like Kyler Murray and then get another piece next to him. Now, in your scenario, considering you have Allen, Connor, Mason. Okay, so you already have Josh Allen. So what the fuck are we talking about here, Colin? You just trade him for whatever you get. You don't even need a quarterback in return. So just go get anything. You have Connor, Mason, Chase, Wilson, Laporte. Okay, so go get a better RB2. Like, you have Mason on a ticking time bomb. Go trade Jalen Hurts for Christian McCaffrey, Give Jalen Hurts and Zach Moss, go get Christian McCaffrey. That's what I'm thinking off the top of my head. But, yeah, go get anything. Specifically, if I'm looking for something, you don't need wide receiver. You need running back. Obviously, you have Mason, Moss, and Singletary as your kind of structured depth. But, if you can cash in on an even better form of running back in this circumstance, you should do it. Thank you, Colin. All right, Chef sends in a question. Says, traded Christian McCaffrey for Jacobs. Thoughts? If you had no Mason, I could justify it. If you had no Mason, but if you did have Mason, I'm sick to my stomach. Thank you. Moving on. Young Money says, you remember me? Yeah, of course. Listen, you asked me that last time. I will never forget your name, Young Money. LOL. Flex Sleeper. Scary Terry Jacobs. Reed. I'll take Reed there this week. Thank you. Ticketmaster. Sends in a question. Hashtag ad, I guess. I got Josh Bijan Jacobs, Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Travis Kelce, Mixon, and my bench is Tank, Kareem, Waddle, Worthy, Komet. Should I make a trade and trade a wide receiver upgrade? So you have Josh Bijan. Okay, so I'm assuming when you say Josh, you mean Josh Allen, then Bijan Robinson, then Jacobs, then Higgins, then Garrett Wilson, then Travis Kelce, Mixon. So you're asking if you should make a wide receiver potential upgrade, which in this circumstance, you could try to go and upgrade on your wide receiver too, so you don't have to play Higgins every week. But again, Higgins will get better over time. Again, that was just his first week of the season. Again, a lot of other wide receivers had really tough starts to the season, and eventually they found themselves success. Deontay Johnson, Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin. Jamar Chase sucked for 2 weeks, so just give him a little bit of time. If you want, you can try to go make an upgrade. Again, Mike Evans, Jaden Reed, that's who I'm going after. That's what I've been saying the last couple of days. Thank you. Andres, Damian sends in a question. I'm currently 3-0. Should I try to make a trade? I have Kyler, Pollard, Saquon, JT, DK Higgins, Reed, BTJ McBride. Kind of want to make a trade at wide receiver. Okay, so considering so your quarterback's solid. Pollard and Saquon are good to go, and you have JT. So, what are we doing? You're good at running back. DK Higgins, Jaden Reed, BTJ. If you want to make a wide receiver trade, you can. Again, it's just like I mentioned with Ticketmaster. You got to give Higgins a little bit of time, but DK and Jaden Reed can carry your team at wide receiver for the remainder of the season if you would like. And you could try to make a move of moving Higgins maybe after a bigger performance and trying to go after a wide receiver. Now, I would not suggest in your scenario, unless you have depth at running back that you have not mentioned in this question. Perhaps you have more running back depth outside of Pollard after Saquon and JT. I would not be trading away Pollard unless you have that, essential depth. Because again, Saquon goes on a bye week in the next couple weeks, or next week. Teams are going to go on buys. Teams are going to get hit with injuries. You want to have running back depth. So I'm not trying to give away talent unless I'm getting back talent, or at least have the depth to be able to sustain that. Otherwise, pretty solid team across the board. Thank you. We had a question that came in from Eric Sanchez. Eric, thank you very much. Let's see if I can find your question in the live chat. If I can't, I will lose my mind. Sanchez. Eric Sanchez, can't find it. Do me a favor, type in the live chat. Thank you. Until then, let's go ahead and leave. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Good gracious. Oh, no. Did I just break my stream? I think I may have. Maybe not. We'll see in about 12 seconds here. It's either the stream is broken or it is alive again. It is live again. Okay. While we are at this intermission point, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. I am sweating. Why? Because it's 1,000 degrees in my house. The lights are beaming down on me, and I am struggling. But I'm here, and I'm happy to be here. Because, again, I'm trying to help you guys out as much as I possibly can for the remainder of the season. I know many of you are struggling thus far, but again, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. We're not trying to sprint to 3-0. I've seen many of teams die after 3-0. Just be patient with it. Now, in regards to the potential of what is going on here, let's go ahead and let's see. If we're looking, okay, so I'm waiting for Eric Sanchez in the live chat. Once we get there, we're good to go. But until then, let me go ahead and see what other questions were sent in. So after Eric Sanchez, we had one from Ticketmaster again, who says, should I trade Travis Kelce for Zay Flowers? Okay, Ticketmaster. In terms of the roster that you had presented to me, you had Cole Kmet as your backup tight end. I'd venture to say that Cole Kmet is not going to be able to get 11 targets per game for the remainder of the season. Now, I could be absolutely wrong, and I'd be happy if I was wrong, because that'd be cool. I'd love to have Cole Kmet be of value. I have him in some of my leagues, so that'd be great. But in this circumstance, I think you don't need that. Okay, like if you were going to move value in order to try to get a wide receiver, I don't know if I'm moving Kelce for it. You have Higgins. I wouldn't. I would rather keep and let's see what Kmet becomes, because once Keenan Allen's back, Kmet may not even be a reliable enough tight end, and then you're in the same situation again where you just don't have a tight end. And you might want to have Kelce in that circumstance. So I'd wait. Lenny V23 says, I have Montgomery and Amon-Ra starting. Okay, great. Should I trade one or keep both? No, absolutely keep both. What do you mean? They're both playing incredibly well. Why would you trade one? No. Listen. My philosophy in regards to multiple players on one singular team, the most that I'm ever willing to start in a singular week is 3. I could consider 4 if it's an unbelievable matchup, but it's 3. So even if you told me I have Amon-Ra, I've got Laporta, and I've got David Montgomery, I'd say, what's the issue? You're good to go, my man. Thank you. Eric Sanchez, don't see you in the live chat. Hopefully you are somewhere in the realm of possibility of typing in soon. But either way, Abide Los Angeles sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I trade Rice and London for Hill and JMO. Absolutely not. Rashee Rice, in my opinion, could very easily have more rest of season value than Tyreek Hill. Rashee Rice is so ridiculous right now. It is, somebody yesterday was asking me, Andrew, what was the biggest surprise of the season so far? And I was like, yeah, there really isn't much. Dude, I'm doing wide receiver stats last night, and I'm like, yo, Rashee Rice is just ridiculous. From a guy that was going to be suspended last season, or 2-3 months ago, we were all thinking he was getting suspended for 6 games, to no suspension, and the guy is leading the team in receptions and leading the league in receptions thus far. Ridiculous. So no, I'd keep what you have there. YMC says PPR Christian Kirk or J.K. Dobbins in the flex spot. Considering the matchup, considering the Herbert injury, I think Christian Kirk's the safer play, assuming, again, Evan Ingram does not suit up this week. Thank you. Nick LaRosa sends in a question. Thank you, Nick. Nick, let me go ahead and look up your name in the live chat, and hopefully you are in here. Eric Sanchez, not in here, but maybe LaRosa is. Nick LaRosa, do me a favor, type in the live chat. I only just got to your question. If you are still here, available, please type it in the live chat, and I will be able to answer your question. Appreciate it. Thank you. Toby Martin sends in a question. Thank you, Toby. Toby says in a full PPR, Jameson Williams or JSN. Kittle and Harrison outlook. Okay, first and foremost, if Laporta is not going to play in that Monday night game, which again, they're both going to play in the same game. So you don't get to, or you have the luxury of being able to wait till Monday and then figuring out who's going to play in that game and then start them accordingly. So in your circumstance here, Toby, if Laporta's out, I'm playing Jameson. If he is not out, I would play JSN. That's the only way that I would approach it. As for Kittle, outlook rest of the season, again, once he comes back, Kittle has always been a top 5 tight end in seasons in which he has stayed healthy. So assuming that Kittle is not going to miss a significant amount of time, he's going to come back and be top 5 upside at tight end. Now, as for Marvin Harrison Jr., like we anticipated earlier this offseason, top 10 ranked, top 10 upside. That's where he's going to continue to live. Thank you. Seta sends in a question, says, so keep my guys or try to go for a bigger receiver. I would try to go for a bigger receiver. Yeah, let's go for it. I mean, again, there's no harm in attempting to do it. Now, if you can get an actual trade in which you like and you feel like you're comfortable making that move, absolutely, let's go for it. 11, Divila Lobos says, 10-team PPR, I have Josh Allen, JT, Kenneth Walker, CeeDee Lamb, Rashee Rice, McBride, and Devontae Adams. Okay, so pretty strong across the board. Once Walker's healthy, you'll be even better. Also have Pacheco, JSN, Jennings, Schultz, and Geno on my bench. Stay or make changes. Need running back depth. Without a doubt in my mind, you need running back depth. In this scenario, with Walker out, I don't know what you've been starting at your RB2. You don't have an RB2 based on what you've sent in here. So maybe you've been able to survive and you picked up, Braylon Allen, or you picked up Roshan Johnson, or you picked up Alexander Madison, and they've survived or helped you live in the last couple of weeks. But ultimately, RB2 is necessary. I think you've got a lot of wide receiver. I mean, it's not like I want to move CeeDee Lamb, Rice, or Devontae Adams. You don't have to do it. But, yeah, you know what? Looking at your team, you don't move anything. You leave it as such. Unless someone's going to give you a better player than Adams, that is a wide receiver, someone's going to give you A.J. Brown, you'll take it. But until then, or Nico Collins or something like that, something crazy, until then, you keep it as such and just hope that you can acquire some sort of running back depth in the absence of Kenneth Walker accordingly. Thank you. Anthony sends in a question. Thank you, Anthony. Anthony Zarati says, in a full PPR league, I'm currently 1-2. Okay, very well. 2 flex league, 10-man, need to make a move. We have Jalen Hurts, Amon-Ra, Olave, Nico Collins, Reed, Puka, Jennings, Connor Stevenson, Dobbins. Okay, cool. So your primary need, technically, I don't know what your tight end is, but your primary need is absolutely going to be trying to at least stabilize somewhat of this running back field. Amon-Ra, Olave, Nico Collins don't need a move. Puka Nacua doesn't need a move. So honestly, maybe the best plan of action in your scenario, because I like Amon-Ra, Nico, Reed, and Puka so much, maybe it's taking a guy like Olave, Jennings, and then maybe Stevenson, Dobbins, Braylon Allen, and trying to go get that better running back. Like if I'm in the business of going and trying to find a running back right now that I can buy low on, it's Etienne or it's Jacobs. And those are the names I'm going to throw out. And I'm going to say, let's go and see what you can find in those overall conversations, Anthony. Thank you. Mesa Kong says, Garrett Wilson or Lazard this week. Yeah, I'd rather play Garrett Wilson. I know he's going to pull Patrick Surtain, but I'd still rather play Garrett Wilson. I couldn't find myself in, I think it's against my religion to play Lazard over Garrett Wilson. So if you would like to do it and you have the, what's the meme? I may always talk about it. It's the Tommy Lee Jones from Men in Black. It's like, is it worth it? If you're strong enough, I'm not strong enough. I would play Garrett Wilson there. Thank you, Mesa. All right, let me see if I can find La Rosa's question. Any La Rosa in the chat? Any La Rosa? No Nick La Rosa? Okay, how about Eric Sanchez? Eric Sanchez. There you are, my man. Welcome, Eric. Eric says in a full PPR, Bijan plus Etienne plus Brooks. Wide receivers are Harrison plus Metcalf plus Devontae Smith, Higgins, Deontay Johnson. Should I trade Brooks and Metcalf for Gibbs and Moss? Do you need the running back depth? I mean, I think you can afford to keep what you have at running back and be comfortable. If you're playing in a full PPR, I'd rather have the wide receiver talent of this capacity of Harrison, Metcalf, Smith, and then the ability to play a Higgins or Deontay in the flex accordingly. So if I was in your position, I'd probably hold. I don't think you need to make this trade, but if you want to make it, it's only because you desperately want Gibbs. Because again, Metcalf for Gibbs makes sense. Brooks for Moss, I guess. Okay, so let's say, for example, Eric, you are in a league in which you can only play 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. I'm okay making this deal. If you're playing in a 3 wide receiver league, or you can, where you can start 3 wide receivers and 1 flex wide receiver, I decline it. If you're playing in a league in which you can start 2 wide receivers, 2 flex, I decline it. But again, if it's a Start 7 with 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. I'll make the deal. Thank you. All right, moving on. We had a question from Jorge Perez. Let's see if I can find Jorge's name in the chat. Jorge, where art thou? Jorge Perez says, hey, okay, let me actually see. You had a lot of questions, Jorge, so maybe I can... Listen, brother, you got like a whole paragraph of nonsense, brother. You typed in a manifesto in here, brother. Okay. Here's the thing. You have like 12 messages in here. I'm only going to be able to answer like a couple questions here because you got a lot in here, okay? Let's see here. What is the question exactly? Hi, Andrew. Full PPR help. I have Devontae Smith, but they will be on bye next week. Very well. Can pick up the Dunze, Wan'Dale Robinson, Lazard, Naylor, Michael Wilson. Okay, so for next week and for rest of season, I'd still like to have Rome Odunze on my team. Let me look at Chicago's schedule. Chicago next week plays against Carolina. I'd be willing to go ahead and pick up Odunze, have him on roster for not only this week, but for the future. That sounds good to me. Thank you, Jorge. I appreciate it. All right, we move on to a question that came in from Rob Jackson. It says, what's up, Andrew? I traded Etienne and Tyler Johnson. Okay, well, Tyler Johnson's not worth anything. But anyway, continue on. For Keenan Allen and Brian Thomas Jr. Cool, okay. What do you think? I'm fine with it. Tyler Johnson's fodder. I mean, again, it's just a name. It's a body. It doesn't actually mean anything. So you're trading Etienne for Keenan Allen and Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas has played well. Additionally, Eckler's concussion, the fact that they've already deemed him out, it may be a more severe overall injury than we may have originally thought. Could be a multi-week thing either way. Keenan Allen, once healthy, makes this deal. And in a full PPR is very valuable. Thank you. Dylan Matos says, in a full PPR flex 1, Pickens, Amari Cooper, Javonte Williams, not playing Javonte, not playing Worthy, Bucky, no, Braylon, no, Najee, maybe. So it's Amari Cooper, Pickens, Najee Harris in a full PPR. Considering the full PPR format, for me, it's between Pickens and Amari Cooper. I'll lean towards Amari number 1, Pickens number 2, Najee number 3. If, in fact, they completely rule out the potential of Jaylen Warren, it would make me a little bit more confident in Najee Harris because he did get himself receiving utilization last week with 5 receptions. He could fall into the end zone against Indianapolis' terrible defense. But in this scenario, I probably still lean towards Amari Cooper with that flex option. But I could justify the other 2 plays because, again, they're incredible matchups within the given week. But yeah, for right now, Amari. Thank you. Nick A sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, I'm 1 and 2 currently. Hold Hill, question mark, or try to sell for somebody like Cooper / small, plus a Diggs small, plus a, I have Ayuk, Evans, Hill, Mooney. Okay, so in this scenario, if you're going to hold onto Tyreek Hill, okay, so this is a question for later on in the week. Okay, look, here's the thing. The issue is they don't play until Monday Night Football. And the issue is we won't know who their starting quarterback is until maybe Friday, maybe Saturday, maybe not even until Monday afternoon. We won't even know. So there is a risk inherently in that. So you could try to sell him, but if you're going to try to sell Tyreek Hill, you better be getting back better value than just Amari Cooper. I want back somebody that is a top 15 wide receiver. Somebody better at very least give me DK Metcalf. Like, I don't want Amari Cooper. I don't want a quarterback associated with Deshaun Watson. So in this circumstance, yeah, I'd like something of actual, weight in exchange for just thin players on thin teams. So for right now, I'd hold until you can find a trade that is enough to justify it. Now, if you were to, like, say, for example, someone's like, all right, I'll give you Mike Evans and somebody, I don't know, maybe they'll give you Mike Evans and Jaden Reed. How about that? I doubt it. But if they do, shit, I'll take that. That's fine. Nick A says in a half PPR. Yeah, so in regards to you already have Mike Evans. So you have Ayuk, Evans, Hill, and Mooney. Got it. So in this circumstance, with already Evans on your team, who are we going after? Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm okay with trading for like a DK Metcalf or like a Drake London or Neighbors, Marvin, Nico, AJ Brown, something like that. I mean, that's what I want. And obviously that's wishful thinking, but I also don't want to give away a 20-point wide receiver if he's going to be a 20-point wide receiver, right? I want to at least be able to recoup some value. Richie Moreno sends in a question, says, hey, Andrew, in a 10-team half PPR, I have Kyron Williams, Connor, Walker, Brian. Okay, so pretty good running backs across the board. I trade London and Brian Robinson / Mark Andrews, and I receive St. Brown and Ferguson. Thoughts? Okay, hold up. You've got really good running back depth. I don't want to go about screwing this up here per se. So look, you make a huge upgrade from going from London to St. Brown. But then let's say, for example, you make a lateral play of sorts in terms of value. Well, is it lateral? I don't know. Time will tell. Let's say it's a lateral play between Mark Andrews and Ferguson. Is Brian Robinson enough to be able to justify the London for St. Brown move? If you're playing in a 10-team league where it's a start 7, so 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback, so you can only start 7 players each week. In this scenario, I'd be willing to make a move of this capacity. Otherwise, I'd like to keep the depth because I'd like to be able to have just more value at flex positions if you have more on your roster. Thank you. Joshua Delgado sends in a question, says, is it worth trading Jordan Mason for Josh Jacobs? I don't have Christian McCaffrey. If you could do it, I absolutely think you should. Again, think about it. If Christian McCaffrey comes back in 4 weeks and he's fully healthy, his ACL, calf, Achilles, all of it rebuilt. He didn't even have an ACL injury, but somehow it's recovered to maximum capacity. Okay. Jordan Mason's gone. And then at that point, you don't have anything. So might as well go out and try to get a top 15 running back of the caliber of Jacobs, who has potential of being top 12 for sure now that we have the return of Jordan Love. Pitch Herndon says, thoughts on my 10-team full PPR team? We have Anthony Richardson, Achane, Montgomery, Dobbins, Akers, Brooks, Steele, Amon-Ra, Devontae Smith, Reed, Jennings, Worthy, Adunze, Puka, Laporta. And drop Akers for a quarterback, ? Yes, you should drop Akers for a quarterback unless you plan on starting Akers this week. Looking at what you have available on roster, Achane, Montgomery, Dobbins, I would play them all over Akers this week. So yeah, I'd make that swap. As for which quarterback you go after, Fields, Geno, Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, at this point, whatever's available, we'll take it, but hopefully in the order at which I just spewed them out. Maybe Baker Mayfield's available. Either way, as for the team in terms of longevity, running back has depth. Achane obviously still a coin toss as to what his value is going to look like going forward. But Amon-Ra, Devontae Smith, Jaden Reed, I'm keeping them. They're great. Puka eventually returns in a couple weeks. Laporta, I'm not moving. So really, it's just a matter of maybe figuring out the Achane situation. If you want to trade out of it, you can. But again, it's very much so dependent on what that quarterback ends up being. Chris Owen sends in a question, says, Cowboys defense or Raiders defense week 4? I'd rather have the Cowboys defense in my lineup. Thank you. Continuing on with questions, we have the following. We scroll down here. We have, all right, let's see here. ML Forrester. Let me see if I can find your question, Forrester. Forrester, there wasn't anything attached to your super chat. If you can do me a favor and type in the live chat, it'd be greatly appreciated. While I go ahead and do so, La Rosa, are you in here somewhere? La Rosa says, I'm here. La Rosa, do me a favor, type your question into the live chat. Whatever you had originally, you already sent in another super? Got it, La Rosa, thank you. All right, La Rosa says, I have Richardson, Kyron, Kamara, Chase, Rice, McBride, DJ Moore. On my bench, we have Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Jameson Williams, McConkey, Love, Gesicki. How can I upgrade QB? I mean, you have Jordan Love. There's no need to upgrade QB. You got Jordan Love. Last season at the back end of the year was averaging nearly 20 fantasy points per game on a per game average in the last 8 games of the regular season. So if Jordan Love comes back, he's fully healthy, ready to go, there's no need. You will start him effectively the rest of season. Kyron, Kamara, Chase, Rice, McBride. Yeah, you're pretty solid, good to go. Now, if you still want to try to go after another upgrade potentially in line, you'd have to then at that point take the value of Love and you'd have to take Love and a player and try to go make an upgrade. But otherwise, I think you should just hold as is, Nick. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so now that we've gone and taken care of that, we need Forrester. Forrester says, in a 10-team half PPR, my team is Burrow, Carr, Kyron, Walker, Charbonnet, Singletary, Braylon Allen, Roshan Johnson, Emmanuel Wilson, Chase, Rashee Rice, Debo, Devontae Smith, BTJ, and Kincaid. Is stashing Waddle worth it? Yes, without a doubt. Not even a question. I would drop maybe 80% of this team to stash Waddle. Again, eventually there's going to be value for him. So I'd be willing to drop BTJ. I'd be willing to drop Emmanuel Wilson. No, Emmanuel Wilson should not be on this team. Give me Waddle. What the heck? Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming he's somehow available on waivers. I don't know, Forrester. I don't know what the context is, but yeah, let's do that. Okay, moving on. I just saw somebody's comment. That was good. Seta has sent in something else of a follow-up. Let's see here. Seta says, okay, let's go to the very bottom. See if there's, okay. Seta says, where is it? Seta, where art thou? I'm just looking at options right now. Okay. Do you think I should package JMO and Amari Cooper for Mooney and Debo? Debo is really good at football. Would I make this deal in which I'm giving up those two players for Debo and Mooney? I'd be willing to. I don't have an issue with that. Again, you have to understand the sacrifice that you're making of the potential, which Debo is dealing with a calf injury that could be re-aggravated. Any of those soft tissue injuries are not fun to deal with. So it could be very risky in which you get back an injured Debo and he misses another 4 weeks. If you're willing to take that kind of a risk, then I'm all for it. But if you're not, then, obviously you keep it as is because you got a lot of talent on your wide receiver group there. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came from Jesus Chavez, who says, trade Bowers, Aaron Jones for JT, Hunter Henry. Jeez Louise. Do I want to give up the potential best tight end for Hunter Henry? Okay, so in a bubble, I would probably say you take the deal and we figure out tight end some way or another in the future weeks, or you make another trade. But if the context is you don't have any other tight ends and you're going to have to start Hunter Henry going forward, I don't make that deal because I don't think I can trust Hunter Henry. That offense is it's non-existent. They do not have a passing game. Therefore, Hunter Henry is going to be double teamed for majority of the games going forward. Let's hear. Davila Lobo says, I also have Charbonnet and Hunt. Check my chats. Thank you. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see. In terms of the rest of your team, you also have Charbonnet. Okay, cool. So then, look, if you have Charbonnet and Walker, then there's really no need to worry about running back. You're kind of set there. Yeah, you're kind of set across the board. I don't think you need to actually move then in that case. You're fine then. Really. Yeah. So just follow whatever I said before and disregard any of the Walker comments. Damian sends in a question, says, my quarterback is Geno in this league with Superflex. The waivers have no good quarterbacks. Should I trade J.K. Dobbins for Darnold in a full PPR? If you can afford to... Darnold's not going to get replaced. Unless Darnold gets injured, he's going to be the starting quarterback rest of the season. So in this circumstance, in a super flex format, I'm fine with it. I don't have an issue with it at all. Caleb Austin says, trade Christian McCaffrey and Kelsey for Joe Mixon and Deebo Samuel. If you don't have Jordan Mason and you're like, hey, I'm in trouble, I'm 0-3, I'd be okay with it. But otherwise, you got to understand, you're trading for two injured players. Actually, you know what? Probably don't make the deal. If you're trading for Mixon and Deebo, if you don't have Akers and Juwan Johnson on your roster, you are playing with fire. Super Dave says, I have questions. Okay, Super Dave, what are your questions? Let's see here. Super Dave, wait, did I spell it wrong? Let's see here. Spelled it wrong. I was spamming my keyboard there for a second. I don't know if you guys heard that. Super Dave says, would you trade Jamison Williams for Josh Jacobs in a... Yes. No questions asked. Don't care about the context. I'll take the deal. Thank you. I mean, that is as easy as it gets. Really. Would you rather roster Leggett or Corum? I'd rather roster Leggett right now. Who are we rolling with? Conk this week? Question mark. Conklin's not a bad overall start. I don't have an issue with that. All right. Thank you, Supa. Appreciate it. We move on to a question that came in from Jersey Style. Jersey, hope you're doing well. Jersey says the following. Says, hey, Andrew, hope all is well. It is. Thank you. Should I start Jones in my Superflex or wait to see if Love plays? As in Daniel Jones or an Aaron Jones? If it's a Superflex format, do you have Malik Willis available? If you do have Malik Willis available, then you would wait. If not, then you're kind of forced. But I think okay, so let me see the practice report right now. That's a tough one. Let's see here. So as of right now today, on the practice report, Jordan Love limited. He was also in the practice report last week with limited all 3 days. So there's no guarantee he plays. So unless you have Malik Willis, you do not, or at least another option that you could pick up and play in the absence of Jordan Love, you would have to play Daniel Jones tomorrow. Thank you for your question, Jersey. Appreciate it. We move on to a question. We took care of Nick LaRosa. Colin Smith says, in a full PPR, Dowdle, Akers, or Ladd McConkey. In a full PPR, if Mixon is out, I'll take Akers there. Thank you. The second best option, in my opinion, would be Ladd, and then it would be Dowdle third. Thank you. YK Matt 27 says, should I drop Swift for Steele? I'd be willing to. Yeah, that's fine. I'd like to pick up Roshan Johnson if you can as well. If somehow, some way you can get that on your roster. Thank you. Twisted Folk says, full PPR, please rank 1 through 3. Braylon Allen, Rashid Shaheed. Sorry, no, that's not Rashid. That's Braylon Allen, Rashad White, or Mooney. In a full PPR going into this week, I would probably rank them Mooney number 1, Rashad White 2, Braylon Allen 3. That's the way that I'd go about it. If Braylon Allen scores a touchdown, obviously he's going to be the leader of the clubhouse, but I will take the idea of the receptions of Mooney ahead of him, being pretty consistent. Now, as for your second question, pick 2 quarterbacks rest of season, Geno, Caleb, Love. Love is number 1 between Caleb and Geno. The upcoming schedule for Geno looks pretty appetizing, but Caleb Williams theoretically should be better. I ranked him better. I ranked him significantly higher in the preseason. I'd like to hope that he leads to being the better of the two, but for right now, considering we don't have a guarantee of that, it would be Jordan Love and Geno right now. Thank you. All right. Hopefully, those were some of the final questions of today. It is the final question inbound here again, because I think I've been here for how long here? Typically, again, I want to be here for about an hour and a half. We're about an hour 40 in. Again, I do appreciate y'all coming through. We're going to probably close it up after this next question from A-Rod BX84. Again, appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow after tomorrow's Thursday night football game. Again, if you are in the realm of playing a guy like, look, tomorrow's starts are pretty straightforward. It's CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, Dak Prescott, if that's your best quarterback on roster, Devin Singletary, and Malik Neighbors. You're starting those guys. Outside of that, everything else is a risk. But 2 thumbs up. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all. A-Rod says in the question, it says in a full PPR super flex format, I have a 12-man league. Trade Jalen Hurts, Jonathan Taylor for Stroud, Mason, McCaffrey, Keenan Allen. I don't think I'm willing to make that move. I honestly, look, I prefer Jalen Hurts so much over Stroud that it's not even close, and it hurts to the point to where that differential makes me prefer the Taylors. Yeah, I'd rather just keep what you have. I don't think you need to make a move of this caliber. My only other RBs are Chuba Hubbard, Zach Charbonnet, and my wide receivers are A.J. Brown, Ayuk, and Christian Watson. Listen, with Jordan Love coming back, Christian Watson actually has value. Ayuk and A.J. Brown, I understand A.J. Brown's dealing with an injury, but in the long term, I think it is in your best interest to keep what you have on roster as it currently stands. Thank you. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. Much love. Pitch Herndon said, did you get my second question? Sorry, you might have missed it. Let me see, Pitch. So that was the first question. Trouble because of tight end situation. Waivers are Geno. Wait, did I miss these questions? Okay, guys, hold up. Questions just got sent in. Why did those? Oh, I missed a lot. All right, rewinding. There are so many questions I didn't answer. My bad. Apologies. Do not panic. So many questions to answer. We're not done yet. All right, traveling back in time because my my refresh button, I guess, didn't function at a proper circumstance here. We go back to Twisted Folk, who we took care of again. Then we move on to Gucci Han, Louis Han. Gucci Han, hope you're doing well. Says, my guy, what's the word? Full PPR. Who do I play as my wide receiver 2 in my flex out of Moss, Najee, Xavier Leggett, Mingo, and Michael Pittman? Your wide receiver 2 in this circumstance is probably Michael Pittman Jr. Your flex in this circumstance is either Moss or Najee Harris. I'd lean towards playing Moss. Thank you. Anonymous Gaming says Mason or for Marvin Harrison Jr. If you could trade Mason for Marvin Harrison Jr., it should have already been done. And hell yes, let's go cash in on that value. Pinch Herndon says waivers, Geno, Daniel Jones, Caleb Williams, Knicks, Watson, Goff, Huntley. Going into this week, I'm very comfortable playing either Goff or Geno. If it was my preference, I'd probably lean in the direction of playing Geno there. Thank you. Let's see here. Ronskov says, Ronskov, I don't even know what DKK KR.100. I don't know what that means, but hey, thank you. Appreciate it. PPR 8-team league. We have Allen, Barkley, Hall, Kyron Williams, Charbonnet, Chase, Ayuk, Amari, JSN, Dell, Debo, Ferguson, Kittle. Trade Williams, as in Kyron, Chase, Jamar, Ayuk, as in Brandon, for Bijan, Collins, and Wilson. Do you see some parts? Okay, so hold up. Bijan I prefer more than Kyron. Chase I prefer more than Collins. Wilson and Ayuk are identical value theoretically in my mind rest of the season. Once Ayuk finds himself, so does Garrett Wilson. So in this scenario, it's kind of a preference matter, but considering the full PPR format, ultimately it's kind of up to your preference. I think it's relatively kind of, it is a lateral play. It is not more of a, it's not an upgrade per se to make a move of this, this caliber. Personally, I would probably keep what you have. I like Chase and I like Kyron, but if you want to have Nico and Bijan, that's good. And let's make the move. Otherwise, I don't know if it's like it's a lateral move. It's very similar value across the board. Jay Elsom says, trade Adams and Jacobs for Hill and Gibbs. Full PPR. If you want to take the risk on Hill and you can fully live with the decision you make, let's go for it. I'm willing to take that risk. Thank you. Jorge Perez sends a follow-up before we go and look for your name in the live chat. We have Grego, who says, full PPR, so with 2 flex, I have Mahomes, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Ridley, Zay Flowers, JSN, McBride, Pollard, and Jets defense. Okay. Debo is on my IR. I traded Shaheed for Ridley. Okay, very well. Not a problem. I need a wide receiver 1. Help to go for. Needed strategic thoughts. Okay, so if you're going to go after a wide receiver 1, per se, you're going to have to give back incredibly high value. So the only way you could theoretically get away with going after a quote-unquote wide receiver 1 would be to give away Zay Flowers along with a Tony Pollard. That would be it. Unless someone wants to take Ridley and Pollard, I doubt they want to. I don't think anybody's going to want to invest in 2 Titans in the same overall move. So, and I don't suggest that you move. I mean, you could theoretically trade away Alvin Kamara and go after a Lamb, Chase, Jefferson, and then just play Pollard as your RB2. That's always in the realm of possibility. So it's either you move Kamara for one of those top 2 wide receivers, or you're taking Zay Flowers and Pollard and you're going and getting a top tier wide receiver. Those are the 2 plans of action. Thank you. All right, I think I've now caught up. Jorge Perez had sent in something else. Let's go ahead and let's try to find the last of the Jorge Perez streak of questions here. It says, tight end is Andrews. Should I keep playing him or go after another tight end like Komet, Ertz, Gesicki? Also, kicker is Groupie. Should I stick with him for the rest of the season or pick up Braden or Prater? I think it's very dependent on matchups and the stadium. The fact that Groupie plays indoors this weekend, whether I don't even know if it's in New Orleans or if it's in Atlanta, doesn't matter. I'm willing to play Groupie in the given week. As for the potential of your tight end play for this week, do I play Andrews against Buffalo? Probably. I'd like to play Komet only if Keenan Allen is out, though. Thank you. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. Much love. That should cover it. Mike Doe sends in a question. Mike Doe with the final buzzer beater. Says, hey, Andrew, sorry. For PPR, Singletary versus Flowers. Let me check where I have them accordingly. One moment, please. Okay, let's see here. If we go to the spreadsheet, my Google sheet for my Patreon rankings, let's see where we have the players accordingly. Is this thing going to load? Hello? Please. Thank you. All right. So we're looking for a function Singletary. And then we're looking for, who's the other player you mentioned? Flowers. I mean, look, Singletary's got a really good matchup. But in a full PPR format, I don't see how I can bench Flowers against Buffalo. They're going to have to throw the ball the entire game. It would not surprise me if Flowers goes for another game of he's probably going to get 13 targets. You want to buy low target, go buy Flowers after that last week because it's only going to get better going forward. I'd legitimately play Flowers in that circumstance. Okay, thank you, Mike Doe. All right, guys. I'll be back tomorrow after the game. Tomorrow, quarterback and tight end rankings in the afternoon. Much appreciated. Again, if you guys want all-encompassing rankings every single Sunday morning, Underdog Fantasy can get that in your direction. Again, all you have to do is sign up using code Andrew, make a first-time deposit minimum of $10. Again, the only other thing is you have to be eligible based on the fact you haven't signed up in the past, or you're, of course, eligible based on your current location. Outside of that, there's Patreon. You can get unlimited questions answered, which is, again, the most valuable aspect of that, or rankings every Thursday and Sunday, and private Discord access. Thank you, guys. I'm going to cue the music. Have a great one. Have a great rest of your wonderful night. Good night, guys. Peace. Hold up. Of course, Santino. What in the brother? I'm literally like 4 feet out of the room. I'm out of here. All right. He says DJ Moore or Flowers in the flex. Very well. So Santino, earlier today I posted a wide receiver rankings video, top 40 at the capacity. If you haven't checked that out, be sure to do so. But between those two potential options, I have them back-to-back ranked. If in fact we're going to be in a situation where Keenan Allen, if in fact it does end up playing this week, DJ Moore's value is effectively brought down because, again, there's a little bit more of a... my second question is above Mike Doe's. Is this really happening? How the heck did this happen? I thought I answered your second question. Okay, hold up. I got to sit down. Okay, hold up. Everybody stay calm. How does this happen so often? Okay, really quickly. Let's just get to this first question here. Santino, to answer your question, brother, let's play Zay Flowers. Now, as for, I think Twisted Folk said, my second question, super chat, is above Mike Doe. Sorry, Andrew. I thought I answered it. Let me check. Full PPR. Am I crazy for... I didn't answer. I'm a fucking idiot. My bad. Twisted Folk. My bad. At least I'm here. Listen, we didn't go anywhere. It says, am I crazy for considering Chuba over Bijan this week only? Yeah, you are crazy. I'm a Cincy fan, and our D-line / rush defense is awful. You're not wrong. BR feels like a lower ceiling with the matchup. Look, here's the thing. What we saw last week out of the New Orleans Saints run stop defense was exactly what we kind of anticipated in terms of if they're not able to blow out teams, they don't have a run defense either. It was the same thing last year. New Orleans doesn't have a run stop defense. They've been hiding behind the fact that they've been blowing out teams and not having to stop the run. So there's no realm of possibility in which I would, again, it's against my religion to start a player like Chuba over Bijan. So you won't hear me suggesting it. Thank you. I think that's it, right? Let me see here. Matt Friend in the live chat said, would you start Geno, Daniels, or Darnold this week over Richardson? I'd start them all over Richardson, honestly. What else we have here? Non-PPR trade Ayuk Harrison for Jennings, Diggs, Adams. I have Brock and Nico. Trade Ayuk Harrison for Jennings. I don't want to trade for Jennings, though. But in this circle, I mean, I don't know. That one's tough. I'm going to plead the fifth. Keep it moving. Malik for JD5 and Gibbs. If you need a quarterback and you need a running back, hell yeah, Pierce, let's do that. Subject to change says real guitar solo. Listeners, listener hours, yeah. This is the ASMR version of our channel where there's no actual visual and then a nice guitar solo. I'm going to actually restart that guitar solo. Here we go. This will finish off the stream. Good night, guys.